My boyfriend received a love letter from his childhood friend. It disturbed me. My boyfriend and I are in our mid-20s, and we've been together for almost 4 years. He recently received an extremely long and emotional love letter from his childhood friend who he considered his best friend. A girl he was very close with in middle school, from 6th to 8th grade. They remained in contact for a few years, even after school, but eventually drifted apart and hadn't spoken in about 5 to 6 years. By the way, this comes from user Silly Sleuth, and if you want to submit your own stories, go to the r/OKStorytime subreddit. So, last year, she briefly reached out to him after seeing one of his gym selfies on his story. They had a short and casual conversation about life, and she mentioned being married at the time. I had a small gut feeling that she might have really liked him or was hoping to rekindle something, especially since she viewed his story twice, but I didn't say anything because there wasn't much to go off of at the time, and he reassured me that they were just really close friends back then. Out of respect for me, my boyfriend didn't keep the conversation going, which I very much admired and appreciated. Fast forward to 2 days ago, she randomly sent him an extremely long, deeply emotional message, something he didn't expect. He was very honest with me and read the whole message out loud, and it turned out to be a raw love confession where she called him her twin flame, said she loved him from the bottom of her heart, and believed that they are meant to be together, and mentioned many memories that they shared and how those were the happiest moments of her life and how simple life was back then. She then mentioned she wanted to name her future son after him and hoped they could reconnect and meet up and explore something romantic. Before he read the letter, my boyfriend casually mentioned he wouldn't mind staying in touch with her every now and then, and at that point I had no issue. I respected their past, but after hearing the depth of what she wrote, I told him it would now make me uncomfortable if they stayed in contact. He told me he wanted to give her respectful closure because he didn't feel comfortable leaving her on open, which I agreed with and had no problem with. He wanted to update her on his life, including that he's in a relationship with me. I suggested that I would like him to give her the closure, or whatever he needed to say, and then close that chapter, not because I don't trust him, but because I felt her message crossed a boundary, and she made her intentions very clear. After sending the letter, she also found his work number, which he uses strictly for business and as an emergency contact for his family and I. She texted him there. At first, he responded thinking it was a new client for a job. I thought the message was a little odd since they didn't introduce themselves, but he brushed it off as his clients tend to be old, so they sometimes forget to do that. So he proceeded to introduce himself professionally with his company name, as usual. But then she replied saying it was her and made a flirty joke like, "You're hired." Ooh. And then, out of nowhere, sent him her home address. He brushed it off as a joke because of the context, but I told him that regardless, it made me very uncomfortable. I wasn't accusing him of anything, I just didn't want another woman's address sitting in his phone, especially one who clearly still has strong feelings and sent it after confessing her love to him. I asked him to please delete her address because it didn't sit right with me, and that's when he got defensive. He asked if I was jealous or if I didn't trust him, and kept repeating how he hasn't done anything wrong and how unbelievable it was that I'd even feel this way when he was being honest and open with me from the start. I tried to explain that it had nothing to do with trust, and I trust him with my life, but that this situation made me deeply uncomfortable, and I didn't like the thought of her address being stored in his phone, especially in his work texts, and that kind of energy lingering around. I tried to explain I'm a very spiritual person. I move through life based on energy, and I didn't want that kind of energy or invitation lingering in our relationship. I even reminded him that when we got serious, I chose to remove all of the close guy friends from my phone, not because he ever asked me to, but because I wanted to. Out of love and respect for him, I no longer wanted any male energy in my life that didn't serve my relationship or my future. The only men in my phone now are him and my family and relatives. I also wasn't demanding anything. I tried to explain that I just wanted to be understood, but he kept saying he didn't understand what I was trying to say and what point I was trying to make or why I was bringing it up when he felt he had done nothing wrong. He said I was doing too much, insinuated as jealousy, and making it seem like I didn't trust him and that I was making him anxious to the point where he no longer wanted to talk about it. He told me he had no idea she felt that way or that she would go as far as slipping her address to his work number, which I completely understand. I tried to reassure him that I wasn't upset with him at all and that I'm actually very thankful he's been so open and included me in everything, but I also needed him to understand that I'm still allowed to feel deeply hurt and disturbed by the letter and that what I was feeling was valid. Still, he seemed confused by my reaction. He didn't think I had a reason to feel the way I did and felt I shouldn't be hurt at all, especially since he was being honest and transparent with me. It eventually turned into a huge argument that took a completely different turn. It wasn't even about the girl anymore, it became about how he was responding to me. His tone shifted, and instead of being understanding, he got emotionally distant and said things like, I was trying to be a good effing person by wanting to respond respectively, but F this, now I'll just block her. I never even mentioned blocking her. I never asked for that. All I wanted was confirmation that he would send her closure, be respectful, and then close the chapter with her fully and move on. And most of all, I wanted my pain and what I was feeling in that moment to be acknowledged. The letter made me cry, not because I doubted him ever, but because it was heartbreaking to read another woman romanticizing such a deep, sacred connection with the man I love. The things she wrote, like wanting to name her son after him, genuinely disturbed me. I didn't appreciate that at all, and I felt like he downplayed it by saying it wasn't a big deal, it didn't bother him, and another girl in his past had done or said the same thing, and that he didn't care. He said he just wanted to tell her he's happy now, has a good job where he's the boss, and is in a loving relationship with me, which I was completely fine with. But none of that changed the fact that I still felt deeply hurt and emotional. Not at him, but at the whole situation, especially at the idea of someone else believing they're meant to be with the person I see as my soulmate. So I'm asking, was I wrong to feel the way I felt? I'm not looking to control anyone, and I truly appreciate that he was honest, but I can't shake how deeply uncomfortable it made me feel. Not out of fear or jealousy, but because of how sacred I see my relationship with him. Comment number 1. You're overreacting. Your feelings are valid. Your actions could have been better. She's obviously super out of line and has some serious issues going on. The twin flame thing is a dog whistle for some weird crap. She's in a relationship. He's in a relationship. The entire letter and contacting him on his work line was incredibly inappropriate. Full stop. It sounded like you guys ultimately wanted the same thing. He said he wanted to respond respectfully. You said you wanted the same thing. But at some point he felt so pushed that he felt like what you actually wanted was to have her be blocked. There is some missing reasons here. How wound up and upset were you over this? He didn't do anything to invite this. You were allowed to be upset, but ultimately he was the one that had the greatest level of violation. She low-key stalked him, and I think if the genders were reversed, we would be calling it that. Honestly, you should be supporting him and centering his feelings, not yours. Once you guys had dealt with the issue in the moment and decided what to do later, you could have you could have asked him to hold space for your feeling. You could have called and talked to your friends and gotten support for your very legitimate feelings and not made him feel like he had to deal with this violation as well as your hurt feelings about it. Frankly, there's some codependency vibes here. You deleting your male friends was a weird choice unless you were only friends with them to potentially date them in the future. You shouldn't lose your identity when you enter into a relationship, and friends are a part of that. Overall, it really seems like you were making this about you when it isn't. You got disrespected, but he had a childhood friend violate his trust. This was not the time to make a big deal about how sacred your relationship is. You should have just been there for him and dealt with your feelings later. A reply to this says she did low-key stalk him, so why would he want to keep in touch with her? And naming her unborn kid after him after finding his work number, how is OP overreacting to that? Reply, OP is freaking out rather than supporting him, basically blaming him for his friend's craziness. Dang, and then it ends. I thought we'd at least have another comment.